Hello, let's get back to whatever chapter this is, 10 I think. You'll know. Title will be up there. If you go and engage yourself to a girl like that, I don't know what you can expect. Did she wear her Paris hat today? Added Fan with sudden interest in her voice. She wore some sort of blue thing with a confounded bird of paradise in it that kept whisking into my face every time she turned her head. Men never know a pretty thing when they see it. That hat is perfectly lovely. They know a lady when they see her, and Trix don't look like one. I can't say where the trouble is, but there's too much... Excuse me, my ears stopped up too. I was trying to open it up. Tricks don't look like one. I can't say where the trouble is, but there's too much fuss and feathers for my taste. You're twice as stylish, yet you never look loud or fast. Touched by this unusual compliment, Fanny drew her chair nearer as she replied with complacency, "Yes, I flatter myself I do know how to dress well. Trix never did. She's fond of gay colors and generally looks like a walking rainbow." "Can't you give her a hint? Tell her not to wear blue gloves anyway. She knows I hate 'em." "I've done my best for your sake, Tom, but she is a perverse creature and don't mind a word I say, even about things much more objectionable than blue gloves. Maudie, run and bring me my other cigar case. It's lying round somewhere." Maud went, and as soon as the door was shut, Tom rose on his elbow, saying in a cautiously lowered voice, "Fan, does Trix paint?" "Yes, and draws too," answered Fanny with a sly laugh. "Come, you know what I mean. I've a right to ask, and you ought to tell," said Tom soberly, for he was beginning to find that being engaged was not unmitigated bliss. "What makes you think she does?" "Well, between ourselves," said Tom, looking a little sheepish, but anxious to set his mind at rest, "she never will let me kiss her on her cheek. Nothing but an unsatisfactory peck at her lips. Then the other day, as I took a bit of heliotrope out of a vase," oh, okay, I guess that's a flower, "to put in my buttonhole, I whisked a drop of water into her face. I was going to wipe it off, but she pushed my hand away and ran to the glass, where she carefully dabbed it dry and came back with one cheek redder than the other. I didn't say anything, but I had my suspicions. Come now, does she?" Means wears makeup, I reckon. "Yes, she does, but don't say a word to her, for she'll never forgive my telling if she knew it." "I don't care for that. I don't like it, and I won't have it," said Tom decidedly. "You can't help yourself. Half the girls do it, either paint or pout or darken their lashes with burnt hairpins or take cologne on lumps of sugar or belladonna to make their eyes bright. Clara added arsenic for her complexion, but her mother stopped it," said Fanny, betraying the secrets of the prison house in the basest manner. "I knew you girls were a set of humbugs, and very pretty ones too, some of you, but I can't say I like to see you painted up like a lot of actresses," said Tom, with an air of disgust. "I don't do anything of the sort, or need it, but Trix does, and having chosen her, you must abide your choice for better or worse." "It hasn't come to that yet," muttered Tom, as he laid down again with a rebellious air. Maud's return put an end to these confidences, though Tom excited her curiosity by asking the mysterious question, "I say, Fan, is Polly up to that sort of thing?" "No, she thinks it's awful. When she gets pale or dragged out, she'll probably change her mind." "I doubt it," said Tom. "Polly says it isn't proper to talk secrets before people who ain't in 'em," observed Maud with dignity. "Do, for mercy's sake, stop talking about Polly. I'm sick to death of it," cried Fanny snappishly. "Hello," and Tom sat up to take a survey. "I thought you were bosom friends and as spoony as ever." "Well, I am fond of Polly, but I get tired of hearing Maud sing her praises everlastingly." "Now don't go and repeat that, chatterbox." "My goodness, isn't she cross?" whispered Maud to Tom. "As two sticks, let her be. There's the bell. See who it is, Pug," answered Tom as a tingle broke the silence of the house. Maud went to peep over the banisters and came flying back in a rapture. "It's Will. Come for me. Can I go? It don't snow hard, and I'll bundle up, and you can send for me when Papa comes." "I don't care what you do," answered Fan, who was in a very bad temper. Without waiting for any other permission, Maud rushed away to get ready. Tom wouldn't come up. He was so snowy, and Fan was glad because with her he was bashful, awkward, and silent. So Tom went down and entertained him with Maud's report. They were very good friends, but led entirely different lives, Will being a dig and Tom a bird, or in plain English, one was a hard student and the other a jolly young gentleman. Tom had rather patronized Will, who didn't like it, and showed that he didn't by refusing to borrow money of him or accept any of his invitations to join the clubs and societies to which Tom belonged. So Shaw let Milton alone, and he got on very well in his own way, doggedly sticking to his books and resisting all temptations but those of certain libraries, athletic games, and such inexpensive pleasures as were within his means, for this benighted youth had not yet discovered that college nowadays is a piece in which to skylark, not to study. When Maud came down and trotted contentedly away, holding Will's hand, Tom watched them out of sight and then strolled about the house whistling and thinking till he went to step in his father's armchair for want of something better to sleep. No, till he went to sleep. Not this again. In his father's armchair for want of something better to do. He awoke to the joys of a solitary tea, for his mother never came down, and Fanny shut herself and her headache up in her own room. "Well, this is cheerful," he said, as the clock struck 8 and his fourth cigar came to an end. "Trix is mad, Fan in the dumps. So I'll take myself off. Guess I'll go round to Polly's and ask Will to drive her out with me. And save him the walk, poor chap. Might bring Midget home. It will please her, and there's no knowing when the governor will be back." With these thoughts in his head, Tom leisurely got under way and left his horse at a neighboring stable, for he meant to make a little call and see what it was that Maud enjoyed so much. "Polly is holding forth," he said to himself, so he went quietly upstairs, and the steady murmur of a pleasant voice came down to him. Tom laughed at Polly's earnest way of talking when she was interested in anything, but he liked it because it was so different from the coquettish clatter of most of the girls with whom he talked. Young men often laughed at the sensible girls whom they secretly respect, and affect to admire the silly ones whom they secretly despise, because earnestness, intelligence, and womanly dignity are not the fashion. The door was ajar, and pausing in the dark entry, Tom took a survey before he went in. The prospect was not dazzling, but home-like and pleasant. The light of a bright fire filled the little room, and down on a stool before it was Maud, tending Puddle and watching with deep interest the roasting of an apple intended for her special benefit. On the couch lounged Will, his thoughtful eyes fixed on Polly, who, while she talked, smoothed the broad forehead of her yellow-haired laddie in a way that Tom thought an immense improvement on Maud's performance. They had evidently been building castles in the air, for Polly was saying in her most impressive manner, "Well, whatever you do, Will, don't have a great costly church that takes so much money to build and support it that you have nothing to give away. I like the plain old-fashioned churches built for use, not show, where people met for hearty praying and preaching, and where everybody made their own music instead of listening to opera singers as we do now. I don't care if the old churches were bare and cold and the seats hard. There was real piety in them, and the sincerity of it was felt in the lives of the people. I don't want a religion that I put away with my Sunday clothes, and don't take out till the day comes around again. I want something to see and feel and live by day, and I hope you'll be one of the true ministers who can teach by precept and example how to get it and keep it." "I hope I shall be, Polly, but you know they say that in families, if there is a boy who can't do anything else, they may make a minister of him. I sometimes think I ain't good for much, and that seems to me the reason why I shouldn't yet try to be a minister," said Will, smiling, yet looking as if with all his humility he did have faith in the aspirations that came to him in his best moments. "Someone said that very thing to Father once, and I remember he answered, 'I am glad to give my best and brightest son to the service of God.'" "Did he say that?" And Will's color rose, for the big book-loving fellow was a sensitive girl. Sensitive as a girl to the praise of those dearest to him. "Yes," said Polly, unconsciously giving the strongest stimulus to her brother's hope and courage. "Yes," and he added, "I shall let my boys follow the guide that is in them, and only ask for them to use their gifts conscientiously and be honest, useful men." "So we will. Ned is doing well out west, and I'm hard at it here. My father does his best to give us the chance we each want. The least we can do is to work with a will." "Whatever you do, you can't help working with a will," as in a boy's name, cried Tom, who had been so interested that he forgot he was playing eavesdropping. Polly flew up, looking so pleased and surprised that Tom reproached himself for not having called oftener. "I've come for Maud," he announced in a paternal tone, which made that young lady open her eyes. "I can't go till my apple is done. Besides, it isn't 9 yet, and Will's going to take me along. Whenever he goes, I'd rather have him." "I'm going to take you both in the cutter. The storm is over, but it's heavy walking, so you'll drive out with me, old man?" said Tom with a nod at Will. "Of course he will, and thank you very much. I've been trying to keep him all night. Miss Mills always manages to find some..." Wait a minute. Let's see. "Of course he will, and thank you very much. I've been trying to keep him all night. Miss Mills always manages to find a corner for stray people, but he insists on going so as to get to work early tomorrow," said Polly, delighted to see that Tom was taking off his coat, as if he meant to wait for Maud's apple, which Polly blessed which Polly blessed for being so slow to cook. Putting her guest into the best chair, Polly sat down and beamed at him with such hospitable satisfaction that Tom went up several pegs in his own estimation. "You don't come very often, so we're rather overpowered when you do humor us," she said demurely. "Well, you know we fellas are so busy we haven't much time to enjoy ourselves," answered Tom. Said Will loudly. "Take a troche, Troche, said Tom. Then they both burst out laughing, and Polly, fully understanding the joke, joined them, saying, "Here's some peanuts, Tom. Do enjoy them yourself while you can." Now I call that a delicate compliment, and Tom, who had not lost his early relish for this sort of refreshment, though he seldom indulged his passion nowadays, because peanuts are considered vulgar, fell to cracking and munching with great satisfaction. "Do you remember the first visit I made at your house, how you gave me peanuts coming from the depot and frightened me out of my wits, pretending the coachman was tipsy?" asked Polly. "Of course I do. How we coasted one day," answered Tom, laughing. "Yes, and the velocipede. You've got the scar of that yet, I see. I remember how you stood by me while it was sewed up. That was very plucky, Polly." "I was dreadfully afraid, but I remember I wanted to seem very brave because you'd called me a coward." "Did I? I ought to have been ashamed of myself. I used to rough you shamefully, Polly, and you were so good-natured you let me do it." "Couldn't help myself," laughed Polly. I did used to think you were an awful boy, but seems to me I rather liked it." "She had so much of it at home she got used to it," put in Will, pulling the little curl behind Polly's ear. "You boys never teased me as Tom did." "That isn't the reason. It amused me, I suppose." "That's the reason it amused me, I suppose. Novelty hath charms, you know. Grandma used to lecture Tom for plaguing you, Polly. He used to say he'd be a tip-top boy, but he wasn't," observed Maud with a venerable air. "Dear old Grandma, she did her best, but I'm a bad lot," said Tom with a shake of his head and a sober voice. "It always seems as if she must be up in her rooms, and I can't get used to finding them empty," added Polly softly. Father wouldn't have anything moved. "And Tom sits up there sometimes. It makes him feel good, he says," said Maud, who had a talent for betraying trifles which people preferred should not be mentioned in public. "You'd better hurry up your apple, for if it isn't done pretty soon you'll have to leave it, Pug," said Tom, looking annoyed. "How is Fan?" asked Polly, with tact. "Well, Fan's rather under the weather. Says she's dyspeptic, which means cross. She is cross, but she's sick too, for I found her crying one day, and she said nobody cared about her, and she might as well be dead," added Maud, having turned her apple with tender care. "We must try to cheer her up among us. If I wasn't so busy, I'd like to devote myself to her. She has done so much for me," added Polly gratefully. "I wish you could. I can't I wish you could. I can't understand her, for she acts like a weathercock, and I never know how I'm going to find her. I hate to have her mope so, but upon my life I don't know what to do, said Tom, but as he uttered the words, something was tugging at something. What? I don't know what to do, said Tom, but as he uttered the words, something was suggested. How'd I get tugging? By the sight before him. Chairs were few, and Polly had taken half of Will's when they drew round the fire. Now she was leaning against him in a cozy, confiding way, delightful to behold, while Will's strong arm went round her with a protecting air which said, as plainly as any words, that this big brother and small sister knew how to love and help one another. It was a pleasant little picture, all the pleasanter for its unconsciousness, and Tom found it both suggestive and agreeable. Now I have to stop there, because you know I'm going. Sorry. Well, I did get 20 minutes in anyway. I hope you're having a good night. Ooh, it's almost 11 bells. Ooh, no wonder I'm sleepy. Woke up early before the sun this morning. And I did go back to bed. Y'all be sweet, don't be ugly, and sleep well. And I won't be on tomorrow, but I'll see you in the YT streets. See you on Wednesday, I hope. 5 bells. Love you. Bye-bye.